Hello, welcome to Ian HRP on YouTube and welcome to today's video where we will be discussing macro photography, which is ideal in this time of lockdown. Hello then, welcome along to today's video where we will be discussing stuff you can do during lockdown. We are in the midst of the Corona-19 pandemic, which is sweeping across the world at the moment, unfortunately. So a lot of photographers are looking for different things they can do while stuck at home and not able to go out and do perhaps their normal nature shots, landscapes, motorsport photography, sport photography, all that sort of stuff that we all like to do. So I thought I'd do a quick video, probably not going to be that quick actually. I thought I'd do a video on macro photography and how I do it. There is thousands of different ways to do your macro photography. This is how I particularly like to do it, and I thought I'd go over some of the equipment that I use to start with. So I will be shooting the photographs on the Olympus OMD EM1 Mk2, which I am recording this video on at the moment, so I can't show you it. The lens that I use is this one here. It is a 60mm macro lens. So on the Olympus Micro Four Thirds system, because it's a 2x crop compared to a full frame, it's an equivalent focal length of about 120mm. Now a macro lens allows you to get 1:1 ratio of the subject you're photographing, which means the subject is the same size in real life as it appears on the sensor, so it allows you to get nice and close. Nice little lens. I would like an Olympus Pro macro lens. That would be quite nice if they can do that, Olympus. If you're watching this, you won't be, but you never know. So that's the lens we'll be using, which is the macro lens. Some of the other things that I like to use are these. These are extension tubes. So it allows you to increase the distance between the back of the lens and the sensor, which allows you to get a bit more magnification. Now you can use these with standard lenses. So at the moment I'm filming this on the 14 to 40 Pro lens, and you can add these to the back, which allows you to get closer to the subject if you want to. On a macro lens, it allows you to get even more magnification and closer to your subject. So I've got some cheap ones off eBay. These are Viltrox, and I've also got some different brands, which are these, which is the Pixco. Now these are ideal because what these allow you to do is use this. Now this is a 2x teleconverter for the Olympus system, and this is only meant to be compatible with the 300mm Pro lens and the 40 to 150 Pro lens. But what you can do is add that onto that using these, which means you get a 2x magnification, which means you can get even closer to what you need, what you're trying to photograph. I'll show you that as well. A couple of other little things. Lighting is very important in macro photography because you are so close, you need a lot of light to be able to get decent ISO speeds on there as well. So this is the little mini inbuilt flash that you get. It's the FL-LM3, which you get when you buy the EM1. This is quite a decent little flash actually. For macro photography, it's particularly good. It just gives you that extra bit of light. So that's a nice little flash that you can use as well. And then what you can do if you haven't got a flash is you can use one of these, which is a light panel. These are the Viltrox L116T, and these are nice. They are powered by standard camcorder batteries. And I will turn them on. I'm using one of them at the moment for the video light, but they are nice and bright, and you can control your temperature. So you can go from 5,400 all the way down to 3,300, and they are a nice light panel as well, which don't seem to strobe on video. So that's the other thing. What else have I got to show you? You can use these if you get into macro photography a big way, you can spend a lot of money, as with everything on photography. So these are, this is a plate that allows you to tilt the camera, and it just gives you a bit of control on what angle you can have the camera at. So that's, again, that was a fairly cheap one. I think it's probably about £50 off Amazon. And then last but not least for today is one of these. Now this is a slider, and what this allows you to do is it allows you to get very precise movements if you're doing stacking photography. So what you can do is set the camera to manual focus, and you basically use this to creep across the image, taking individual images, and then you'll stack them all together and you'll get a final image, and I'll show you how to do that as well. Right, so that's all of the equipment. We will touch on most of it today, probably not all of it, and then I'll show you some post-processing tips as well, and how I edit the images that I take. Right, so let's get down to it. Let's carry on with the video. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you find it interesting. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I do like to go through the comments as well. And yeah, hope you enjoy the video. Let's crack on. This is the Olympus 60mm 2.8 macro lens. Quite an old lens. They haven't updated this recently. I believe there is rumour they may be doing a pro version of the macro lens, which I really would like to see. The pro lenses, these are very good lenses, but the pro lenses do add a little bit more. And if you're serious in your macro photography, I think this is one of the pro lenses they are lacking at the moment, so it would be nice to see that. So it is a fairly short, compact little lens, as most Micro Four Thirds lenses are. So looking around the lens then, you have your focus distance indicator here, which is a little red line that moves up and down. At 1:1 macro, the closest distance you can get is 0.19 meters. Add an extension tubes and that make that completely different. They get a lot closer. And obviously it can focus from infinity through to there as well. The focus is not the fastest on this device, and then here this allows you to limit the focus distance, so you can go from 0.4 meters all the way through to infinity. You can go from the closest focus distance, 0.19 meters through to infinity, or you can then control it so you can go 0.19 to 0.4 meters when you're doing your macro, and then if you just move it across slightly, what it does is it jumps all the way to the 1:1, which is a useful little feature to have as well. So yeah, it's not a bad little lens actually. I do like this lens. It produces some nice pictures. Dirty front element on there, Ian, I've just noticed. Give that a clean before we start. So yeah, a nice little lens that. And then what you can do, as I explained at the beginning, is you can add these. So these are Pixco extension tubes. So you have got a 10mm and a 16mm, and these help you get closer to your subject when you're taking macro photography as well. Oh blimey, that is dirty. Sorry, I need to clean those as well. Anyway, what you can do is you can add the 2x converter and the 1.4x converter as well. So this is the official Olympus 2x teleconverter, which should only work with the 300mm f4 Pro lens and the 40 to 150 Pro lens, which is the one I have. And the reason it will only work with that is, as you can see, if I take the front element off, you have this bit that protrudes out the front of the lens, and then the actual end of the lens there is very close, so there is no option to allow that bit to go into the back of the lens like there is on the Pro lenses. By adding the extension tubes, and these are the brands that tend to work for me, the other ones don't quite work, you can add this extension tube to the lens. Let me get it all lined up, and then you can see that the protrusion is slightly less. However, it is still not enough to allow the lens to fit on, so you have to add this extension, this second extension, which then allows you to add the lens. So you end up with something like that. So you've got the 2x teleconverter, the 2 extension lens, and then the actual macro lens at the end. Now what I will say is this is by no way an official way of doing it. It works for me. I've never had any problems with it. You still get the electrical contact, so you can still do your autofocus and change the f-stop, etc, etc on here. But word of warning, not an official way of doing it. Do it at your own risk. However, I've never had a problem. Right, let's get into taking the actual macro photography, shall we? Okay, so I'll just show you the setup that we have here. So we are using this cheap little light box, which we got off Amazon or eBay, one of the two. It was only about £15, if that, actually. And then we have this little figure here that we'll be using to demonstrate and take some pictures of today. And then we've got the camera with the macro lens, and then a little external light just to provide some extra light as well. Right, let's cross over to the PC and I'll show you what we're doing. Okay, so the software I'm going to be using today is the Olympus Capture software. This is available for free from Olympus if you have an Olympus camera. You do have to provide them with your serial number to get it, and I believe it works with the EM5 cameras onwards. I don't think it works for the EM10. So this is a really nice bit of software that allows you to use the camera via your computer as long as it's plugged in via the USB cable. You can also set it up from Wi-Fi. I found that a little unreliable, so I prefer to use it via the cabled method. So we are going to take some pictures today of these cardamom pods. Now this is actually a cardamom pod, and the cardamom seeds as well, and there's a few grains of salt just there. So at the moment we are on f11. I have the flash inserted as well, and we are using the light box as I showed you quickly at the beginning. So let's just take a picture of the current settings and quickly look at this preview, and this is only a preview JPEG, and as you can see it's probably a little bright, so we're just going to lower down the flash slightly as well. So we'll just go to -3 and we'll just take another picture and just see the difference on here. That's a little dark now, so we'll just go to 0 and we'll see what that brings up. There you go, that's quite nice. And obviously the advantage of using an external light, if you're using the flash, is it allows you to see what you're focusing on. If you didn't have the external light, that would be quite dark on the live view to be able to focus. So let's go through a little bit of the different options that you have when you're shooting with the Olympus system. So at the moment we are on a single drive mode. Now what I do like to use is this, which is the high res shot. Now this allows you to take, it takes, I believe it's 6 images, and it moves the sensor minutely between each image and then combines them all together to give you a 50 megapixel camera on the EM2. If you're lucky enough to have the EM3, you can get up to 80 megapixel, which is a very big file, but they do work nicely as well. And you can actually use the flash on here as well. So I'm just going to lower it down to 1/20th, and then I'll just take a picture and you'll be able to see that the flash will fire on each individual image. So let's fire this off and see what results we get. Now these images can sometimes take a while to do and to process, so each one is probably about 5 seconds to process. The advantage being is that you get a much more detailed image because you basically have an 80 megapixel image, which allows you to bring a lot more detail up. Now obviously this is a very low res preview, so it won't show you the full detail, but I will show you later on what they look like as they come out of the camera. So what we're going to do today is we are going to take some stacked photography. So we are going to take a number of images and then stack them together to provide a final image. You can do this on using the high res mode. It creates a lot of data. So I have recently taken an image of these cardamom pods, which I will show you later in the video, and the amount of data involved, 3.6 gig of raw image files, and the saved file on Photoshop was 2.5 gig. So it does use a lot of data. So we're not going to do that today. We're just going to use the standard single shot drive mode, and we're going to take some pictures and then we're going to put them together. So when you do stack photography, what you need to do is you need to make sure that you have an image for basically every plane of focus. So as you can see on the screen, as I move the camera on the slider, certain parts of the image come into focus at different times. As you go through the image, you basically capture a separate shot for every part of the image that you want in focus. Now the best way to do this is to have the smallest movement possible on the slider in order to get the most images out you can. So you want to start at the very tip of the image being in focus, which is just down here. This little bit of wood here is the first point of focus that I'll take a photo of, and then I will work my way through taking an individual image each time until I get to the very end of the image. So it will probably result in about 40 to 50 separate images that we will then work on to combine together. Okay, so with the 2x teleconverter on and the extension tubes, as I showed you earlier, just wanted to give you a quick demonstration of how extra close you can get. So this is with the 2x teleconverter on. It's the same image that we were looking at before, where we could see all of the salt crystals, the cardamom pods and the cardamom seeds and some of the wood. Now with the 2x teleconverter on, as you can see, that is actually a cardamom pod, which I will say look absolutely disgusting when you look at them up close. They're really manky looking things, but it will just give you a demonstration of how much extra detail you can get. I'm just going to reposition that slightly. So this here is a salt crystal, which you can see an extreme amount of detail on there. Now what you will notice when you're using the converters and extension tubes, the slightest wobble of the tripod, so for example I'm now wobbling the floor, gives you extreme shake. So you do need a very sturdy tripod and also preferably a sturdy floor to place this on. But it does work, and I will show you some examples later, and you can get extremely close on your subject using that combination. Right, let's get to editing the previous images that I took and we'll see what results we get. So the piece of software we're going to be using in order to stack our images is called Helicon Focus 7.6.1. This is a paid bit of software. You can get a free download, a free trial version, which I will link down below, and then you can pay either per year or you can buy a lifetime license as well for this. So I will add the images. I'm not going to give a complete run through of this because, to be honest, I don't know the ins and outs of every little bit of this program. I use it for what I use it for. And it works fairly well. So there are lots of videos around which will give you much more in-depth instructions on how to use this if you are interested. So these are the images that we have taken, and there are, I believe, let's have a look, 70 files we ended up taking. So we will drag all of these over into the program, and as you can see it lists them all in here, and then I will use the method B depth map. I find this works best for me, and literally all you have to do then is click on the render tool and it will go through and check the focus of each individual image, and then it will build a map and then stack them all together. Now this works fairly quickly with JPEGs. With RAW files it will be slightly slower, and with high-res images it will be a lot slower. Can take up to about half an hour if you've got a lot of images. But normally the results are fairly impressive. It's 99% of the time it'll be human error if the image doesn't turn out how you expect. So there, as you can see, this is the image that we have. You do have the option to retouch within the program itself. However, I tend to do all of my retouching on Lightroom and Photoshop. So this is the final stacked image. It's come out fairly well. That is 70 images within there, and then you can save. You do have the option to export a 3D model. Now I don't pay for that part. That is an extra bit of money. But it does work quite well. It gives you a little 3D image that you can use. So let's go into Lightroom and Photoshop and we will edit this image down. So we now have our image in Lightroom. Don't forget this is 70 single JPEG images stacked together. So as you can see, the detail has come out quite well. Actually, there is a couple of bits. This here needs to go these little red dots. I'm not quite sure what these are, but they do appear on my images, so I've yet to find out why there are. There's some green dots up there as well. So overall, the image is 5182 by 3708 pixels, and actually it's not bad. I've slightly missed out the top there, but you know, for a little test image I'm quite happy with that. However, I do want to change the background and I want to improve this in Photoshop. So we will go to Edit in Photoshop. Our image is now in Photoshop, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of some of these distracting little bits here. So we will use the I think we'll use the lasso tool on this part here. We will go to Edit and Content Aware Fill, and as you can see, it's gone. Content Aware Fill is a pretty amazing tool, which does a pretty good job of getting rid of all of the artifacts. So we are just going to clone these out, just using the clone stamp tool. And we are just going to get rid of these red spots, and we're also just going to get rid of these green spots on here. So next, what I want to do is I want to improve the background on here. I'm not overly happy with the background, so we are going to create, so using the object select and the select and mask options, we are just going to get it, actually we'll try the select subject. So Photoshop has decided this is all we want, which is not what we want. So we'll go into the select and mask, and then we will brush in the other details that we want. So we want all of the foreground, and we're just going to go through and refine the edges. Obviously, when you are doing this on your own image, you can spend a lot more time than I'm going to for this demonstration. Okay, that will do. It's not brilliant, but it will do for this demonstration. So we're going to export to a new layer with layer mask. Click OK, and now what we will do, we will just turn the background on. We're going to duplicate that layer, and now what we're going to do is we're going to blend the background using the content aware fill. So using the lasso tool, we're just going to select very quickly this object. You don't need to be precise at all for this, because basically all we're going to be doing is blurring the background out using the content aware. So we have selected the image, we go to Edit, Content Aware Fill, and as you can see, using the content aware fill, we have literally got rid of the background. So we will click OK on there. So there is the background. We will unselect, and then we will go to Filter, Blur, and we will do a average, I think, which gives us a very grey background. So as you can see, we've got rid of that slightly distracting background on there. An alternative way of doing this is adding a solid colour and literally adding a black colour. Sometimes this works better than others. For me, that looks not quite right. It looks a bit too much like it's being cut out for this particular image. So we will just delete that layer, and I'm quite happy with that. We will now save that image, and we will go back into Lightroom. So within Lightroom, this is the image that we've just done. As you can see, it doesn't make a great deal of difference on this, but it does take out the slightly distracting background. We've got a slightly more neutral background now. So we will go into Edit. I use a lot of presets. I have favourites, this one particularly. I can't even remember where I got this from, but I do like using presets just to improve the workflow. As you can see, we've got Peter McKinnon stuff on here as well. But we will just edit this slightly. Bring the exposure up. We'll just slightly change contrast. Drop the highlights slightly. There's not many shadows on there. I'm just going to drop the whites. Bring the blacks down quite a lot, and then just up the clarity a little bit on the texture, and we'll just boost the colours slightly. That's way too much. So just about there. And then what I may do as well is I may just crop that down a little bit to about that. And there you go. That's our final image. So that's 70 separate photos all stacked together to create this final image where you have got focus all the way through from the very tip to the very end. Just wanted to quickly show you a couple of other images I've done recently using this stacking technique. This particular image here is of a wasp or a bee. So this was using the 2x teleconverter, and as you can see, you can get way in. Unfortunately, I didn't quite crack the focus on this one. As you can see, these are out of focus, which was slightly annoying, but as you can see, you can get very close in onto the image that you're using. So this was the original image taken without the 2x magnification, and then that is with the 2x teleconverter on there. This was the original, and then this is the image edited down, and you can get some extraordinary detail when you do this process. So again, this was another image taken using with the cardamom pods and the salt crystals. This was taken using the high-res images. So within here is about 3.5 gigabytes worth of data, which resulted in a TIFF file of about 430 meg, something like that. So very, very big files working here. However, what I don't like is I don't like the blurriness here just as the focus goes out, and this background was really distracting as well. So using the technique I showed you earlier, I did clip this onto a solid background colour and got rid of some of the out of focus parts as well, and then put some editing on. I believe it will show me in here. Yeah, so lowered the exposure slightly, up the contrast, highlights, etc. All of those. Put quite a bit of dehaze on, which does work sometimes. It can be overused, and the clarity, etc. And then this image was made up of 59 high-res images, and as you can see, the amount of detail you can get is quite extraordinary that you would never normally see. So that's the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it interesting. Learning my particular technique for taking macro photography. Everybody does it slightly differently. This is all based on studio macro photography rather than out in the wild macro photography, which is a bit more challenging, where you have wind, live insects not keeping still, all that sort of stuff that you have to contend with. But I hope you found this interesting as well. Thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed it, why not give us a subscribe? I get videos out as and when I can on different subjects. So the subscribers are going up as well, which is always encouraging to see, and I'm glad people are enjoying the videos. So until next time, thank you for watching. Keep yourself safe. Until then, bye for now.